Very excited for our next fireside chat. It's going to be a fireside chat. We are very fortunate to have, I think it's there, it ruined my surprise, but you guys know. So in this fireside chat, please welcome Hogan Lovells John Salmon as he speaks with New York Department of Financial Services Superintendent Adrienne Harris to discuss the critical connection between regulation and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Welcome. Can we get a round of applause, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that all working? Good. I have deep trust in technology, clearly. Superintendent Harris, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's been a year since you last joined us on this stage to discuss the one-year anniversary of joining NYDFS. Can you share with us your reflections on year two? What do you see as your major accomplishments?
Well, we survived March. That seems like a big accomplishment for those who pay attention to the banking world in particular. But we've really done quite a lot of work. I'm now a year since I was here with all of you last, and just hit my 2-year anniversary as superintendent of DFS. I'd say the accomplishments are many, and full credit to the amazing team we have. We've done several pieces of blockchain and virtual currency guidance around stablecoin, around blockchain analytics, around market manipulation. So we really do continue to lead the regulatory world with respect to virtual currency. We were deeply involved with Congress on the stablecoin and crypto markets bill, ensuring that states were still going to have a role to play in regulating the space. Many of you will know we instructed one of our regulated entities to cease the issuance of BUSD. And oversaw the orderly wind down of that issuance. And it was an action that was followed by regulators all over the world. So we really did set the high water mark there as well. I've since been nominated and joined FSOC as the representative of the state. So the other states asked me to be their representative on the Financial Stability Oversight Council, which is a tremendous honor. We've worked on check cashing regulations. We're, I think, now the second state in the nation to have regulatory authority over pharmacy benefit managers. And I could honestly go on and on about all the wonderful things the team has done in the virtual currency space and elsewhere in the past year. It's really pretty thrilling.
Great, thank you very much. So looking at digital assets, what changes have you observed in New York's digital assets market over the last year? And do you think the continued commitment to digital assets has had a notable impact on New York and the startup landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was so much talk, I think, when the bit license regulations first came into effect in 2015 about how all this regulation was going to drive the market out, and isn't this regulation horrible? And of course, fast forward to 2021, 22, 23, and you hear people in the space so grateful for clarity and transparent rulemaking as opposed to regulation by enforcement or just the uncertainty that's coming out of DC. So in 2021, we saw that nearly half of crypto investment in the nation was in New York-based companies. In 2022, the number was almost as good for us, even though we continue to have the most rigorous virtual currency regulation in the country and probably in the world. Our applications queue just continues to get longer, so the demand to be licensed and overseen by DFS just continues to grow. And that, I think, benefits the market here, but it helps us protect consumers and markets as well. So I think every day we're proving that you can build a robust marketplace, have businesses come to your jurisdiction, grow in your jurisdiction, but still protect consumers.
Yeah. And how has the DFS struck a balance between consumer protection and innovation? And what do you see as the challenges in maintaining that balance?
Yeah, I mean, it is hard. And I think so often you see these things posed as diametrically opposed to one another. You can either protect consumers or you can grow robust markets. And part of my mission in coming into DFS to begin with was to prove, no, you can actually do both. Thank you. You can actually do both of those things. And I think part of that is having the transparent rules in place. The guidance we issue, we are able to see developments in the marketplace, or what was happening with stablecoin, the emergence of blockchain analytics, the potential for market manipulation, and issue regulatory guidance very quickly so that we are keeping pace, providing guardrails that protect consumers and markets, but they're also giving industry clarity around how they need to build and scale their businesses. And so I think, again, it's that clarity, that transparency, that engagement that brings people to New York and to DFS. But it also means that New Yorkers are better protected than anybody else in the country. And the clearest example of that was that New York was the only place in the country where FTX was not licensed to do business. So when you look at the losses from FTX in New York, they're actually very small as compared to a place like California, where the losses there were over 1,000x the losses to New Yorkers. And that has everything to do with the regulatory regime that we have here.
Yeah, really interesting. So given how fast this digital assets market is evolving, how do you see NYDFS engaging with the other regulators, federal, international, to share learnings, maintain consistency to the extent that's possible? And what do you see as some of the areas of collaboration you've seen both with US regulators and globally?
Yeah, there is not a day that goes by that either myself or somebody on our virtual currency team is not talking with some other regulator, other state regulators, the federal regulators, whether it's the SEC, the CFTC, FinCEN. We are literally on the horn all the time. And internationally as well. We've just signed an MOU with the UAE, if I can get all the letters straight. They sort of rang us and said, hey, we're setting up our virtual currency regulators. We know that New York is leading the way. We'd love to be involved and engaged with you all and learn from what you've done. Same is true for the Monetary Authority of Singapore. I spent a lot of the spring in Western Europe, chatting with regulators over there, whether it's the Bank of England, the Bank of France, Bundesbank in Germany. So really, we are constantly engaged both nationally and globally with other regulators and policymakers in the space, just given the body of work that we've done. And that includes, as I mentioned earlier, being fully engaged with Congress as they look to write legislation to enable federal regulators. I testified before House Financial Services around stablecoin. We were deeply involved in the drafting of the recent bills, and I will say we are terribly eager. I am terribly eager. My colleagues are terribly eager to have a federal partner here in the space, to have that authority be clearly outlined. So we are optimistic about the chances of this legislation moving soon, so that there are more federal regulators deeply engaged as we are.
Great. How, in your view, can blockchain and the digital assets community do better to inform regulators, and so that they can provide that kind of better, clear guidance you talked about earlier in the industry?
Yeah, I think that engagement is so important. I mean, it's something we do all the time, whether it's with our guidances, whether it's just in our individual supervisory relationships with companies. We have a task force for formal engagement. I think there's a couple of things that the industry could stand to do a little bit better. One is, I think it's not entirely clear to all policymakers what the usefulness of some of these assets are. And often we have industry come in and they think we just want to hear about financial inclusion, which is important, right? Bringing down the cost of payments and remittances, definitely an important public policy goal. So we have people come in, they talk about the importance of financial inclusion and the role digital assets and blockchain can play. And then when we ask for data or how are you doing this, we sort of get blinking eyes and shrugging shoulders. So I think the industry still has a lot of work to do to really prove out its use case, especially when we're talking about financial inclusion and lowering the cost of payments. The other thing I would say is I think there's still a lot of maturing for the industry to do. Often we see the business side scale very fast and the compliance apparatus does not keep pace. But if you talk to regulated financial institutions that have been around much longer, like banking, like insurance, right? They have learned and had the socialization that just can't be the case. So the other thing we're often counseling our companies to do is the compliance apparatus has to scale along with the business side. And I know it's a cost center and I know it's not fun, but that is really the key to building a sustainable enterprise in a regulated industry.
Yeah, very interesting. And just looking at the year ahead, Superintendent Harris, what do you see your real focus being? I mean, you've obviously accomplished a lot in the last year. What is the next year? Taking it easy?
Yeah, I wish that were going to be the case. One of the things I've been committed to, we call it the 3 Ps in the department, and it applies to every division within DFS, but policy, people, and process. On policy, it's again being committed to this idea that you can protect consumers and markets and grow a robust industry at the same time, that those things are not in opposition to one another. And so everything we do seeks to prove that point. On people, there were very few people in the virtual currency unit when I arrived 2 years ago. We now have a team of over 60 professionals dedicated every day, all the time, to the oversight of virtual currency. It's the largest virtual currency regulatory body in the world with that 60 plus person team, but they will still tell you that they need more bodies and professionals. So as I often joke, if anybody's wanting to take a pay cut and come over to the regulatory side, we would welcome you. And then on process, I mean, there will be more guidance. Stay tuned. And we continue to do a lot of process management so that we can be a more efficient, more responsive regulator. And I think as wonderful as the team is and as great a job as they have done, there's always room for improvement. So we're looking to do more along those lines as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That's really been an interesting exposition of what NYDFS have done. And, I think you guys have done an amazing job. So thank you for talking us through it. And I definitely think that, I've had the discussion with a few of the audience today. I think we'd all welcome clearer guidance from the regulators, which is exactly what you've shown massive leadership in. So thank you.
No, well, thank you. And I'd say, look, if there are things that we are missing, whether or not you have a license application with us or you're one of our regulated entities, we're always welcome engagement from stakeholders. We want to know where things are going next. We want to know what things we may have missed. So that engagement for us just helps us be better regulators and makes everybody better off. So we always welcome that from you.
Great. There's a question in the back. Yeah.
Superintendent Harris, there are marketplaces that operate in the social impact sphere. I would point to carbon credits and green bonds, for example, where there are blockchain products whose risk and reward structures tied to things like carbon credits have been considered a commodity for a very long time. Can you see a different flavor of regulation in relation to blockchain products, which is one of your focuses, that are tied to positive and social impact products in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the beauties, frankly, of being a state regulator is the nimbleness that we have. And so I think as the market evolves, as new assets, new products develop, right, we are able to evaluate quickly and respond around either creating new frameworks, adding to our frameworks, or providing for individualized supervision in a way that's fitting with a particular product type. For us, our authorities don't depend on these, what's a security, what's a commodity, what's something else, which I think is useful because, as you're in part alluding to, a lot of these assets sort of shift depending on use case. And so because our authority is blanket in that way, we can develop either regulations, guidances, or individual supervisory agreements that are tailored to the specific risks that a product might present.
Is there get your microphone? Thank you. Yeah, that's it. No, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Clotilde Munguya. I'm from the Republic of Congo, Kinshasa, and it's a very broad questions in the perspective of to leave no one behind. What is your perspective for the African market in general? And I would like to know more about the sub-Saharan African countries and more specifically on the French-speaking countries. Thank you.
Well, so I'll answer that as best I can, which sort of goes back to a point we were talking about earlier, which is I think there's still so much untapped potential for blockchain and virtual assets when it comes to financial inclusion, when it comes to making cheaper, faster payments. And I think, Africa has, even since before virtual currency, has really been a leader in making sure payments are faster and more efficient. And so my hope is that the industry will continue to expand in a way that continues that tradition and makes payments and financial services, whether we're talking just about currency or tokenized assets more generally, more accessible across the world, including to those places that don't have the same legacy payment systems as other parts of the world. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm eager to see the industry do more.
Anybody else with good? Oh, sorry.
Still have another question. So
Okay.
what type of persona, what type of a stakeholder you would like to interact with?
We interact with a variety of very diverse stakeholders, from consumers to people from industry, academics, other regulators. I mean, there really is no legislators, other policymakers. There really is no end to the list of people that we look to engage with, and that always take every opportunity to engage with us on the topic of blockchain and virtual currency or other things.
Hi, this is really exciting to hear your fireside chat. My name is Adrienne. I lead the U.S. Blockchain Coalition, which is actually a federation of about 46 states across the U.S. working together. And I guess my question is, as a regulator, are there use cases that you could, from a technical standpoint, dog food, use yourself to make your own department more efficient using this technology? And if that could be happen, what would what would you use it for? And are you using it?
There's, I am always sort of pushing our department to think more about technology. There are some things we're exploring that I can't really talk about just yet. With respect to blockchain technology, we're doing a lot around AI, some of which has been announced in connection with SUNY Albany. And certainly when it comes to blockchain analytics, we're doing quite a bit of work there so that we can do transaction monitoring, monitor for fraud, market manipulation, and other things. So the team is really quite sophisticated in the tools that we've deployed to make sure that we can oversee the market in a robust way.
That's for like more financial related products like crypto and tokens, but what about using more of the DLT part, the tracking companies you're in conversations with or what stage they're at? Is there anything along those lines?
Well, we are a financial regulator, so doing the financial oversight is important.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's lots of room for us to be, as I did mention, we are looking at some distributed ledger technology for use, but not yet right for public discussion.
Thank you.
Great. Well, it just falls for me to thank Superintendent Harris very much for taking the time to speak to us today, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.